I'd like to fill you all in on how to survive the zombie apocalypse. There we go. All right. This is your guide to stay alive, so let's get started. There's 5 things you need to know. Zombie identification, so the types of zombies that are out there and how they became zombies in the first place. Essential survival skills. Combatives, that's fighting a zombie that's been infected hand to hand, which is very dangerous, and we'll get to that. Using weapons to defend yourself against zombies, and vital zombie survival tactics. First thing we're going to cover is the zombie identification. Where do they come from? So there's a number of ways that a zombie can become infected. A person can go from a person to a zombie. These are the 4 that the Department of Defense actually cited in the Pentagon CONOP 8888. So the bacteria and viruses is kind of self-explanatory. Zombie disease that infects people, sort of like rabies, but of course much worse, kind of like down in Miami, that guy that was eating people's faces off. Radiation, another self-explanatory one. Most science fiction novels cite gamma radiation as the cause for zombification. There's evil magic zombies that the Department of Defense also mentions. And that's sort of like a necromancer, some guy that reanimates dead people. So they're not so much zombies as reanimated dead persons. And then space zombies, which is like an asteroid or some other sort of, infection from space that turns people into zombies. And that's one of the more dangerous ones in that you can't really predict where the infection is going to start. So the United States sort of loses its advantages in that there's really big oceans between us and most of the world. So space zombies are definitely a big threat for us here in this country. There's various species of zombies you might encounter. The fast zombies are zombies that are kind of loners. They're very quick. They're generally smaller, which is good in that they're a little more easily destroyed. The weaponized zombies are a huge threat. Those are zombies that have enough of their brain left that they can figure out how to use weapons against you, which is a serious problem. The horde zombies are the kind that most people are familiar with. They're the kind that just sort of have the slow, ambling gait and travel in large groups. Elvis impersonator zombies are also something you might encounter in that Las Vegas or Canadian Las Vegas, as an encyclopedia mentions. You can find them by their gaudy outfits, and if you're carrying peanut butter banana sandwiches or anything similar in your survival kit, it's very likely that you'll attract an Elvis impersonator zombie. Animal zombies are also a very serious concern, especially for somewhere like Africa. An elephant zombie is something that you don't want to mess around with, or a cheetah zombie. And that's another thing, stay away from zoos in the event of a zombie apocalypse. That's going to be a very dangerous area very quickly. Nobody wants to have to deal with like a wildebeest zombie. I mean, they're dangerous enough on their own. The last thing you want is a zombified, vicious animal running around. So, nice transition. Yeah. All right. So zombie psychology. You have 2 types of zombies that are frequently found in their brain makeup. You have the individuals, like the fast zombies, not too difficult to handle, and then you also have the mob, which is frequently seen on The Walking Dead. They're the kind of zombies that just travel in packs. They have sort of a hive mind, and they all sort of go to the same place, all sort of do the same thing. It's a problem in that as these packs of zombies get bigger, it's more and more difficult to deal with them. Very quickly get overwhelmed. So the other thing you need to know is basic survival skills. You've got to identify your needs, your basic needs of survival: fire, water, food, shelter. These are all things that you need to have buckled down before you can even begin thinking about combating zombies in the environment. So the first thing you need is a water source. After 3 days without water, you'll die. It's a very critical need, especially in the zombie apocalypse. A lot of your typical water sources are going to be contaminated. You don't want to risk contracting the zombie infection through a contaminated water source. You need to find a way to either harness rainwater, or do reverse osmosis, which is a little more complicated. There's various means to obtain clean water, and boiling isn't necessarily safe in a zombie event, in that if it's radiated water and radiation zombies, it's a bad situation. So you need to harness fire as well, which is a little more dangerous in that if you have a fire burning, it might attract zombies, but you need to still be able to cook food, keep yourself warm, things of that nature, and of course, services that we're used to relying on, like central heat and air, not going to work in a zombie apocalypse environment. Lastly, think about building defenses. You need to be able to protect yourself from any zombies that encounter you or your friends and family, anybody that's staying with you. You need to have fortifications ready to go in that event. There are a couple special contingencies that I'd like to mention. An interurban environment is going to be a little bit different than trying to survive out in the woods, of course. You can sort of rely on existing infrastructure in a way, especially as far as defenses go. Popular one's a grocery store, lots of food, lots of water, and it has its own generation, own power source built in. So if you can secure a grocery store, that's a very good zombie survival area. And then of course traveling is something we're all going to want to worry about. You need to get from A to B without becoming a zombie. So you got to think safety. Cars are great. Buses are great, large, heavy vehicles, but they of course use gas, and once you run out, you're stuck. So you don't want your nice vehicle to become a death trap when it runs out of fuel. Animals are something that people consider, but if you're riding a horse and the horse gets bitten, all of a sudden you're riding a zombie horse, and you went from having your friend there to having a problem on your hands or between your legs. So always think safety when you're traveling in a zombie apocalypse. All right, so hand-to-hand combat. There's only two things you need to know. One is super dangerous, so if you're going to do that, personal protective equipment. You need to make sure that you don't contract whatever means of transmission the zombie is trying to infect you with. So gloves, a breath mask of some kind, something like that. The important thing when a zombie is fighting you is that they can't generally move very quickly. So if you're able to sort of get around them, come from the back, that's going to be the most advantageous to getting around. You've got to know the kind of zombie you're dealing with, and then move from there. So weaponized combat is the most important part. A lot of common choices here that you've seen in movies, TV shows. The chainsaw, it looks cool and it's a lot of fun, but the problem with the chainsaw is that it's really heavy, it's really loud, and you have to put gas in it. So when that thing runs out of gas, it went from being, oh, I'm awesome, to, oh, I'm screwed, because now it's just really heavy and it's not sharp enough to just sort of slice cleanly through a zombie. Edged weapons are great, especially the katana, a la Kill Bill. Katanas are great. They've got a nice sharp edge, and they're not going to get stuck. And because it's more of a slicing weapon than a stabbing weapon, you don't have to worry so much about getting it stuck in a zombie. The shotgun is great. You don't have to aim real well, so if you're not a good marksman, shotgun full of buckshot is going to be a great anti-zombie weapon. Ammunition, of course, is going to be a problem. And specifically on weapons, there's a lot of different kinds of weapons out there. Rifles, shotguns, handguns, all sorts of things. 9mm handguns are the most common. The 5.56, also known as .223, very popular. It's all over the place in this country, very easily to get your hands on. It's just one of those things you want to make sure that if you're going to somebody that's selling weapons, in the zombie apocalypse, it's a duress situation. Trading is definitely the best way to get your hands on ammunition. You won't try and buy it because money's not really worth anything anymore. The world's ending, so large bullets are heavy, and although that everybody wants to be the cool guy with a sniper rifle, picking zombies off from like miles away, it's just not terribly practical as far as getting from A to B and just basically staying alive. So the United States practices maneuver warfare. Again, CONOP 8888 goes over basic tactics that the United States would use in the event of a zombie apocalypse. Maneuver warfare is basically outmaneuvering the enemy rather than trying to meet him head on with brute force. So on foot, as you can see, our guy here, he's having some trouble. You don't want to try and fight zombies on foot if you can avoid it. There's lots of them, or they're moving really fast, or they're cheetahs or something. So on foot is a bad way to try and fight zombies. From vehicles, you have a much better chance to survive. Until you run out of gas, of course, if that happens. Behind cover, that's the best way to do it. If you're in an entrenched position, you have the advantage on zombies. But the most important thing to remember is be a team. Everybody's got something that they're good at in a zombie apocalypse. You need to build your team so that way you have the best chance to survive. That guy down there is thinking about pizza, but that's going to be important later. You know, after you get a break from killing zombies, got to stock up on food. All right. Any questions before I conclude here? No? All right. Well, thanks for watching. I hope now you know a little bit more about how to survive a zombie.